Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance.
And I'm George Affleck.
And it's time for...
All right, UnSpun.
That was some great Matthew McConaughey on a Friday.
Well, because we're going on holiday.
We are.
But yet we're going to still do the show, right?
We are still going to do the show. Should we just say from a surprise location?
Surprise. We're not going to tell you
next week,
where we are.
And the week after. And the week after.
We'll be slowly getting, our skin will slowly be getting more tan.
We will.
We
won't be rusty like the rain that we're feeling here in the Lower Mainland. It is fall. It is election time. October 21st is the day we vote for our Prime Minister. And do you know the platforms? Wait, do you know how many planes federal Liberal leader Justin Trudeau and his party used to campaign?
Two, I know two.
2 planes!
Takes 2 planes to get, and I think, and apparently Elizabeth May's driving around in her Shriner car or something across the country.
Why do we know this about the planes? And the fact that, we've purchased carbon offset tokens. I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
You buy carbon offset tokens.
Where does the money from the carbon offset tokens go?
Into a carbon fund that I think the airplanes pay into wherever they are from. Magic place. Magic carbon.
I need to unspin that someday. It sounds good, does it? But do we care how many planes?
Well,
people do.
I think it's the issue with the 2 planes versus 2 citizenships is the issue, isn't it? This week.
Yes, George.
2 or 2, which is worse? And I've seen some polling on the internet.
Okay, you
which
tell
you
me.
can always trust. And so it looks like people care less about the fact that Andrew Scheer has an American citizenship and a Canadian citizenship than they care about Justin Trudeau having 2 airplanes, which seems worse. But actually, when you look at the amount of media coverage these days, the Conservatives and the fact that Scheer has 2 citizenships seems to be resonating with the media, certainly in the last couple of days. And I think it's not because of the citizenship. It's not about
the citizenship. No. It's about the fact that the Conservative Party in the past have attacked others in Canadian politics for either not being from Canada or holding more than one citizenship, and then not being forthcoming. Like Andrew Scheer, when standing in opposition, would attack, was it Thomas Mulcair or was it Michel Jean that he was like going against?
Oh, no, it was Michel Jean.
Yeah.
Yes,
this is the problem, that looks like you're talking out of both sides of your...
Yes, and not being honest about it in a general way, for sure.
It's a character thing, right?
Yeah, and I think people, it's what's interesting is, I don't know how this got in, how this came out, but we talked about this in the past, that slowly as we get towards Election Day, things are going to start dropping, little bombs.
Every time a bomb drops, I think of you. Because you said, no, you literally said since before brownface, blackface, he's like, just wait. If there is anything, there is a cachet of roadblocks and speed bumps for the opposition, for whatever party's opposition to throw down in front of you. And it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, well, if there's stuff. We were talking about, and the fact that the polling last week, Scheer is kind of on his way up. He's kind of it's looking like he could maybe pull it off, as long as something doesn't come against him. Because really, he should be way further ahead, given the campaign that Trudeau has had. Yeah. It's just like, why is he so far only that little? They're even, and in a normal race, you would think he'd be much further ahead. So any gaffes on their part.
Is the voter as engaged? We say this all the time. Is the voter as engaged in these news cycles as we are? You know, we break it down on Twitter. We break it down on the podcast. We are listening to News Talk Radio. And,
I don't know. I think the youth, the younger, the millennials aren't, and they never are.
Right.
They were in the last election. That helped Trudeau. They're not engaged this time. Will they show up to vote? We don't know.
Will a disgruntled Liberal voter stay home because of the horrible campaign thus far for the Liberal Party? Is it true that Conservatives always vote? Is it true?
Older people vote, and older people tend to vote Conservative. So it's, and I think that's why we talked about this last week. And it's, how do they drive the fear message to say, if you don't, hey Liberals, if you don't vote, hey kids, vote, because if you don't, the Conservatives will win. And you don't want that, because the NDP and the Green Party are certainly not going to win. They could hold the balance of power, but that's a big roll of the dice. What happens if the Conservatives get a majority? Hey, this is a total possibility. And
But
that's the message that the Liberals are trying to put
right,
forward.
so because they want to scare people enough to get out and vote, right?
Yes.
But when we look at, we just had the French language debate on Monday on TVA,
Yeah.
and really this federal election will, as it always is, be won by winning Quebec and the 905,
Yep.
which is the Golden Horseshoe in Ontario.
I mean, BC doesn't matter.
Oh God.
Yeah, and
We would like to project. We can call the winner. I'm like, the polls haven't even closed here. Yeah, a vote hasn't
depressing.
been.
But there was 1.2 million people watching that debate.
That's a
So, and the debate for English is next week, the big debate with Trudeau attending. So 1.2 million, that's 10% of the population. That's not bad. I mean, that's pretty engaged.
So how does that reflect on Andrew Scheer when asked at the French language debate his stance on abortion?
Well, yeah, and he was on the defensive a lot in that debate. I don't speak French, but I had to kind of follow, the information afterwards. I think it's hard to say Quebec how that resonates, because obviously there's a lot of Catholics in Quebec. It's a more religious province than the rest of the other provinces. So maybe, and he's a Catholic, I believe, and so maybe that resonates in a positive way, that he's pro-choice, or he's pro-life, but he's also not. He said he's not going to open it up for debate in Parliament.
He actually had to say,
I think
after
he's got a lot
the
of people who'd like it to open for debate within his party.
Well,
So,
we're seeing that North America wide. I will reserve my rant on that at this point, but that just having a federal leader step to the podium and say, my personal belief is pro-life.
Yeah.
However, as Prime Minister, I would not reopen that. That still, as a woman, makes me uncomfortable.
I think, you said it. There's a
pro-choice.
trend that is heading towards this pro-life movement.
Roe v.
in
Wade
governments.
is this close to being overturned in the United States.
All they need is now Canada is different in that
Thank
respect.
goodness.
So we have a different judicial system, and
Yes.
so it's and our I'm pretty sure our Supreme Court is not weighted it's not weighted towards conservatives currently. It's
Thank
weighted
goodness that's
towards
not how the
liberals.
judicial system works here. But
No, but
I must say,
they don't seem like a very closed-minded.
right. Watching it happen in the United States, though, in a country that we thought, honestly, I thought for sure that this is an issue that we're not revisiting, and for how incredibly precarious it all is now, it's unnerving. Even if the facts are in Canada that we're way away from anything like that happening here.
But it's a wedge issue, right? And
Yeah.
that's in elections,
Yeah.
especially this close, getting those wedge issues that get people excited and angry or whatever. So for the Liberals, they're trying to, and Scheer keeps saying, I don't want to talk.
has been
Why do you
consistent.
keep asking me this?
Yeah.
But
because
the
it
Liberals
works.
keep pushing that message, saying, they're just like you're saying, I don't know. And they're saying, we're not going to do it. How many more ways can we tell you that?
But it
That
is
the
a ballot
skepticism
issue,
exists.
right? Because if the maybe I'll stay home liberal hears that, it's like, well, I now I better go vote for the Liberal Party to make sure that, like,
Yes.
that's the wedge, right?
That's
I'm
the
just
wedge, and the wedge
explaining the wedge issue to get
against
people.
the Liberals is the Two Plains issue. So
Yes.
it's saying, he's not really for the environment. He bought Trans Mountain. He bought a pipeline.
Yeah.
And he's flying two planes around. Really. So that's the NDP Green message pounding him. And so you'll get, I think, a lot of people who were thinking that Trudeau and the Liberals were all about the environment, and they're saying they're not. Clearly, they're saying, and so because they bought a pipeline, but we all know why. And Trudeau's always been clear. It's about the it's a good economy, economy and the environment
And Alberta.
And Alberta. Well, that's a whole.
Which will
other
be,
issue.
I was going to say that might be a topic for next week's podcast, because there's a whole Alberta should separate.
Yes, and then there's a video. Vivian Krause's movie's out now. There's an and we can talk about that.
We will next week, and it'll be appropriate when we talk about it.
Yes, because I think people are starting to hear some of the anti-Vivian Krause stuff to her movie now, so that balance.
What about Jagmeet Singh walking at Atwater Market prior to the French language debate, that public interaction he had with the French older gentleman who probably didn't know that the leader was mic'd up?
Yeah, I haven't seen the whole recording, but because I would hope that he would have said, I've got a mic on. That should have been made clear to this guy.
In the video that I saw, he did not, because he kind of came out of nowhere, and the whole it was just a happenstance that the camera was rolling. And sometimes when you do some of these like walk and talk, so you're going to go follow a leader around, you will mic them up, or anybody. It could be a hockey player and you're walking around, and that's why you got to be careful when you're wearing a live mic, as we know, for what you say. But when somebody that you don't expect comes to speak with you, this was a candid moment that was captured. And when viewing it for the first time, the way the French gentleman leaned in, he clearly wasn't like, you should take your turban off. You should cut your turban off. He leaned in and goes, you know, you really should cut your turban off. It'll make you look more Canadian.
Yeah,
it was almost like
political advice.
He thought,
I mean,
super racist political advice.
Super racist political advice, which would, in fact, because there's a lot of racists.
And then he doubled down because he said, you know, well, when in Rome, and Jagmeet Singh's reaction to that, well, we're not in Rome, we're in Canada. Because he said you would look more Canadian. And he goes, well, I think Canadians look... I thought Jagmeet Singh handled it very well.
Yeah. What bugged me about that was how the video was first released and how they cut off the last part of that, which the guy at the end said, well, I hope you win. And they cut that out. So kind of humanized the guy a bit more. I mean, the poor guy is probably going, what's the...
I got to tell you, I played that...
What's social media?
I played that last bit on the radio.
Did you?
When it broke, because I did hear, and we punctuated, because there were some sirens in the background, so... I don't want to give anybody a pass for cutting off that little bit because it was loud sirens at that point, but you could hear.
It's an important part of that guy's message.
Very much so.
He's a supporter. He's trying to help, but he's also a racist. But you know, he's an old guy.
He just doesn't realize.
A lot of those guys out there.
He doesn't realize that saying that is racist.
No.
And it is.
Kind of like wearing blackface at a party in 2001.
Yes. But discussing that.
Even 47-year-olds don't know what
I had a conversation with Global News Arthi Patel on this topic, on the Jagmeet Singh walking through Atwater Market. And she was saying, you know, as a woman of color, as somebody from the South Asian community, in my community, we get that a lot. That is certainly not the first time that Jagmeet Singh has heard that. And I asked Arthi, what do I do when I'm at that Aladdin party at West Point Grey Academy and I see that? Because would you say something? I think in 2019 you would. I think after this cycle,
I
would.
I think most people
go and say,
what's up with that dude?
I would go and say, that is racist. Or around a dinner table, if somebody were to say, oh, that guy should just cut off his turban.
I would probably go, racist. If I was a parent in that situation, even back in 2001, I probably would have gone to the principal and said, do you really think this is a good thing to have in our school, you know?
Yeah, no.
Maybe you can go talk to that guy, whoever he is. Oh, it's the future Prime Minister of Canada.
Maybe you should go wash his face.
Yes.
Let's talk about the BC legislature, because there was some happening in there that's sort of been lost in the noise of how busy the news cycle is with everything else. The Sergeant-at-arms, the suspended with pay Sergeant-at-arms, Gary Lenz, has now resigned or retired. Right?
He took his retirement package and... out of Dodge.
Well, unspin it for us. What do you think's happening there?
And of course, last week we were talking about Bellringer, Carol Bellringer, who done the whole investigation, which actually made Gary Lenz look, it was actually less vilifying to him than it was to Craig James. But none of us threw up that much.
Or at all.
Or at all.
It's not surprising overspending and loophole jumping and expenses that are absolutely ridiculous.
We talked about this, bad management, bad decision making, stupid stuff.
But is it perp walk and RCMP investigation? Not yet.
Doesn't appear to be. So now we have this RCMP report that's coming, but Gary Lenz apparently has seen it and was given first viewing, as far as I understand. And so he made the decision, based on what he saw, apparently, to retire. So the immediate assumption that I saw from media when that happened was that, he's guilty, and he's feeling guilty, and so that's why he wants to get out of there. I would argue, and then many people have argued, that now he's going, okay, I got a lawsuit. And I've always argued that this is like so much legal slander stuff here that's going to be very, very valuable if they decide to go that route. And
future earnings, lost earnings, reputation. There's so many civil pieces of this.
Absolutely. And so if the RCMP report comes out and it says you are, that there was nothing illegal happening, then Gary Lenz, who would then, if he'd been a staff person, it would be very difficult for him to sue his employer. So now he's gone, he's retired, and this will come out. He's free to sue his employer, for his previous employer, for this. But maybe it's the opposite. Maybe we'll find out soon. And maybe by next week we'll have the RCMP report out. I don't know.
It'll be fascinating to get the details to this because it'll be a year, November 20th, since they were perp walked out.
I feel like we've been talking this since our first episode.
Right. Well, we're episode 39. So when we get to 52, we're there.
That's why we're going on vacation. We're having our midlife crisis.
It's the unspun
we'll be driving
crisis.
Porsches everywhere next.
Little Corvette. Yeah, top down. What about John Horgan in Washington State with his buddy Jay Inslee?
Yeah, I find this so, and they're talking about the environment. And I find the hypocrisy of this, buddying up to this guy in Washington who has more refinery and oil and gas pouring through out of his state than Alberta does. Yeah. Cherry Point, if you've ever seen it and seen the tankers leaving there, there's hundreds that leave there. And they are big oil tankers, big ones, not the ones that come from the Trans Mountain, which are small oil tankers. These are massive tankers, and they go up the coast, they go out to the ocean, they go everywhere, they go right through our waterways. Yeah. And yet here's our premier who's slamming the premier of Alberta, but he's my buddy, and they're talking about the environment. And I feel like
Joint Clean Grid Initiative.
Yeah, and they want to control the waterways, but yet his tankers can still go through, and he doesn't. It's like, what is going on? How do you not see the hypocrisy of the Washington State governor and their how they manage their state, and then what they're trying to get us to do, which is to reduce our amount of pipelines and gas and all that stuff.
Fossil fuels. And then the headline is that John Horgan and Jay Inslee are actually, sticking it to Donald Trump by making deals between them.
I don't think Donald Trump really cares about our premier. No offense, Horgan, but I'm sure he's not paying much attention.
What about going all the way down the coast on the time change thing, on the daylight saving time? I saw a tweet from you, George _Affleck on Twitter, at Jody Vance, at UnSpun Podcast. I haven't even mentioned that. We can throw in 43
communication staff.
Can't be wrong. Y'all will get there in a second. But the online consultation for British Columbians saying they don't want to change the clocks. Now we have to agree all the way down the coast, right?
And up north too.
And up north. But it's right. And somebody tweeted about that, and you put out something that. I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. I hadn't mentioned it, but it was something that's like, because people are staring down. It's like, well, a time change coming in. It's like, no, it's not happening this year.
I mean, I would like it to stay the way it is. I hate it when in November when we go back and now it's dark and kids are out trick or treating, and usually sometimes it happens before or after Halloween. It's always kind of in that area.
It's the first Sunday in November, right?
Is that what it is? Okay,
yeah.
So it's
right after Halloween always.
As a farmer, I really appreciate it.
Let's go to City Hall because we already toasted the communications people. Oppenheimer Park update, George _. Almost called you Jeff _. It's been a long day.
I've been called Jeff Affleck a lot by Jeff Meggs and I, and I'd show up to media. Hey, Jeff, and I'm like, oh god, that's the
George. Sorry, I take that back.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's a busy week at City Hall in Vancouver, and I'll talk a bit about Port Moody too. But the Oppenheimer Park saga continues. There were two motions. A motion is something you bring to council. As a councillor, you can bring these things to council and present them, and that's your idea. And so there were two motions related to Oppenheimer Park. One was from Jean Swanson, and that was saying, give them all hotel rooms, basically, which...
The city should give them hotel rooms.
And so the mayor called that out of order. Which he can do, and as
what
chair,
happens when that happens?
Well, usually then it's thrown out.
Okay,
it just doesn't exist.
You're out of order.
But you can challenge the chair.
Okay.
Which means you can say, no, this is in order, and prove that you have to prove to me it's not in order. And then it comes down to a vote, and if the majority vote with you, then it stays in play. So it stays. So in this case, on her motion, they voted against her, and
so it's out of order. It's gone.
It's gone.
The Oppenheimer Park protesters are not going into hotel rooms.
No,
so other alternate motion put forward
which was by Michael Wiebe and Lisa Dominato. So Green Party and NPA got together, put a motion forward that was basically saying decampment. They never used the words, bring the police in or anything like that.
Clear out the camp.
This is the Green Party's way of trying to soften this whole issue, and their unwillingness, and certainly as we know this at Park Board, to really be tough the way that John Cooper is and Tricia Barker on
Take
Park
the
Board.
park back is what.
Take this park back.
John Cooper's like, if we don't clear out this park, we are going to have tent cities at every park in the in the city eventually.
Sure.
Because the affordability crisis is what it is.
Yeah, if everybody in Canada says, "Oh, free tent sites across Vancouver,"
let's head to Vancouver.
in the best parks in the world.
Yeah.
So the mayor again tried to say that was out of order, and they challenged the chair, and he lost, and so it stayed in play.
Okay.
And so it stayed in play forever. In fact, it never actually got concluded because there were so many people signed up to speak to it for the 2 days that I think it was like 10:30 on Wednesday night, or there was a woman who wouldn't leave, the last speaker, and she wouldn't leave the mic, and they had to bring in security. She still wouldn't leave, and so council basically just walked out, and the meeting was suspended because they had lost quorum, which they've lost. They have to have 6 people in the room at any time, or they have to have a majority of people who are in attendance of the council to be there at any given time. So in this case, they lost quorum and the meeting was over. And so now it's referred to the next council meeting on the 23rd. I'm sure it'll probably pass, but it was a strange day on that one.
The 4th.
But the motion itself is, yeah. They're not going on holiday with us, I don't think.
No.
Not together, but
no.
The council's two weeks away. So
that seems exhausting.
But really, neither of these motions. I mean, I
But
guess you could argue Eugene's motion would have done something, but it would be super expensive, and we already gave them all rooms, and then they came back because there's a whole bunch of new people there.
And one of the things that I think is important to mention is the number of people that are in Oppenheimer Park now. A good, solid percentage of those people have no interest in.
They're protesters. They're protesting the system, the homelessness issue, the housing, the affordability issue. These are professional protesters. You see, looking at that council, I recognize those people. They were the same people that were at Park Board. I've seen them at Burnaby Council. These are people whose job, it appears, to attend council meetings and raise a ruckus and potentially sway the vote one way or the other, which would go against potentially the will of the majority of people. And I would say, without a doubt, with any polling that I've seen, whether it be internet polling or public polls that are official, the majority of Vancouverites say enough is enough. This park, this campsite has to be taken apart. And certainly the neighborhood around there. You and I have talked about this, and I've actually received a few direct messages asking me to help the neighborhood to raise awareness because they're afraid to come out and speak and say that they want these people out of their neighborhood, and they're afraid. They're intimidated by
one woman spoke up, who is a downtown East Side resident, who said, I know it's going to be incredibly unpopular for me to say this, but I'm afraid of that park now, and I live there. I'm afraid of it. It's dangerous.
And you
so
see
that's
all the
where
crime.
we're at.
We've talked about that, the weapons, the arrest. There was 3 attempted, it's like endless.
Let's talk about Port Moody, because this is weird. And we're short on time and long on info. What's happening in
Port Moody made a decision in a recent council meeting on the 17th to change the process for the public hearing, basically to say they want more time for developers to work with them on their projects. And so it's and they want it embedded as a bylaw. And so they've asked staff to go away and come back with a bylaw change that would provide them 2 other steps before it comes to public hearing, where there would be a meeting and to discuss it, and they would have input at that point, and there would be another meeting where they would have there'd be downloaded information from staff or something like that. And I find this highly concerning because to me this opens up the opportunity for corruption, certainly the perception of corruption. The role of a council is governance, and your job is not to negotiate, not to even have the appearance of negotiating with anybody. So it's in a public hearing process, staff do their job, they meet with the developers, they talk about the plan, they put the project together.
They give you the information
as a
councillor.
And then they present the facts of however they might be of the project, and the public input and all that stuff. Then council makes the decision whether to, which in effect a public hearing is to go against what might be your current zoning capacity. So, I want more height in my building. So you as a council have to say, okay, another floor or more density or whatever it might be. The only other opportunity is build within the rules that, developers, if they want to avoid public hearing in this process, just build within the zoning that exists. So if Port Moody really wanted to make changes, they should just change the zoning of the city and upzone or something, the whole city.
Don't add 2 meetings
Don't
in
add
private
more bylaws
before
that create this
bureaucracy.
Even the perception of corruption is there, and people are already so skeptical that there's this too much of a cozy relationship between developers and elected, and I don't think this is going to help them. I think this is really going to hurt them, and I would advise them not to do this.
A couple of people I want to do shout outs to, if I may. Trisha Barker.
Trisha, is that B-A-R?
Like Bob Barker. Barker,
Bob
not
Barker.
Baker. Not at all Baker. I said Trisha Baker, I don't know,
I think you made me say it once.
5 or 6 or 7 podcasts ago. And it's a running joke with Trisha and I now, because she attended an event right after that podcast dropped, and her name card at the event had Baker. And so she's like, look at you. What are you doing to me? And then recently I got another one that said the mayor, Kennedy Stewart, actually called her Trisha Baker. And I'm like, it's Barker. It's Trisha Barker. It's Trisha Barker. So there you go. I just wanted to fix that up. And shout out to the people that are following at UnSpun Podcast on Twitter. We're reading you.
Yes.
And George_Affleck at Jody Vance. Of course, you can read us at the Orca, my Wednesday column, The Middle. A little shout out to my middle this week.
Yeah, it's a good little column on, I love the flu shot. I get it every year. My 11-year-old, not so much.
Does he get the nasal mist?
No, they never offer that. I'm going to find out about that.
You can ask for it for kids that don't like needles.
He probably won't like that. He just, we'll see.
He's getting a needle.
He's getting a needle, says Mama. You know what? And the needle doesn't actually hurt. It's the days after that hurts. The actual shot doesn't hurt. It's the next day that hurts.
The bruise.
Yeah. But my mom was a lab technician for 30 years, and I have had it drilled into my head, the difference between a virus and a bacterial infection. Yes. When you go outside with your hair wet and you get sick, that's called hypothermia. It has nothing to do with a virus or bacteria. Mm-hmm. People who say they get sick from the flu shot, that's impossible. Read the column. If you want to debunk myths, send it to somebody who you hear all those myths from yearly. We get it. And don't send your kid to school if they're sick saying they probably got it there. That's not cool either.
And if you want to get rid of hiccups, just drink water.
Stand on your head and hold your breath.
No,
and
don't
drink
do that.
water and
You're
bounce on
dehydrated. But
you're dehydrated.
That's all it is.
There's an op-ed piece right there. Anyways, read the middle at theorca.ca. Sign up for the Fin while you're there.
Which, by the way, happy anniversary to the Orca. 1 year as of October 1st. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Yeah,
and
birthday.
Big shout out to McLean Kay, our editor-in-chief, who does a lot of work to make us all look good. So we do appreciate that. But the Fin is a vital piece of being in the know, because it's not just contributors to the Orca that are featured in the Monday to Friday morning email.
It's all. They go through all the material in the whole province.
This is the must-read list.
Just curate it and give you. It's not biased in any way. It's all of it, and you don't have to figure it all out. You get it given to you, handed on a silver platter.
The big piece of that, did you hear it? It's unbiased, and that's what UnSpun is trying to do. Is just tell you the truth. Our truths. The truths by Jody and George.
George facts.
So we'll find out where George and Amanda are heading on their vacay when you tune in to UnSpun next week.
Thanks.